So, you know how the Colucci case involves not just the murder of Sara Lynn Colucci in 2016, but a year later, Michael Colucci's mother was murdered by his stepfather. And, from what we understand, like the pressure of him and his case and everything in Michael's life is what drove Ivo Colucci to commit murder like that. So the family just got back items that were in Ivo Colucci's car, his truck, back in 2017. So that's 8 years ago. And among that was a phone belonging to Michael Colucci's mother. And that phone is locked. So, and this is something I'm just bringing up because I think a lot of people deal with it, unfortunately, because I think law enforcement and prosecutors have the worst customer service alive. So the family was trying to get that phone to the prosecution because obviously there could be something on there. And according to their father, who's now dead, he told them that there could be stuff on there that shows that what Michael's communications were with his mother on the night of the murder or the night of Sara Lynn Colucci's killing. And additionally, there could be some texts on there that shows certain things. So what bothers me about this is that so many victims out there, families who are looking for justice, they want to help because obviously it's been almost 10 years for Sandy, and this is almost 9 years, I guess. We're still talking about a trial, and it's like, I think that empathy needs to be extended to these people because it's like, what else? This is an exciting development, right? They want to help get this person prosecuted, and they got this thing landing in their laps. So the family called over to the AG's office, and, it was radio silence. So I contacted the PIO, and I have to say, he was very responsive and, helpful. So that this is not, him, but they made arrangements for the phone. So they finally, after that, they contacted the family and made arrangements to pick up the phone. But they didn't show up. So that's what I found out this morning. So the AG's office did not pick up the phone, and in fact had told the family to give it over to Berkeley County Sheriff's Office, which is the original investigating authority in the matter, who had to recuse themselves and send it to SLED because they refused to amend that. They wanted to look like a suicide. Like, they wouldn't change that. They wouldn't reinvestigate when all evidence seemed to point otherwise. So,
well, I think it speaks largely to our criminal justice system, which we've dealt with this many, many, many times, of victims that want to help in cases, and then prosecutors that also say victims are very difficult to deal with. And we've always said that there needs to be more people in a victims advocate position, because most victims advocates in our court are just overwhelmed and overworked. There just needs to be more resources to bridging that gap. But I was thinking of this, how many times have we heard from prosecutors, from our prosecutor, Duffy Stone, that rape cases are impossible? And
they're unwilling to try new ways.
They're unwilling to try that they're impossible. But then from that same office, we've heard so much chatter of I don't get the perfect victim. I need better victims. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's this huge problem between some prosecutors and getting information and evidence out of victims. And unfortunately, in rape cases, the victims are most of your evidence. That's most everything, and you have to be able to work with them. And I hope that we find a way to bridge that gap, because of course rape cases are getting dropped. Imagine if that was a rape victim and said them getting excited to see a prosecutor coming to their house and then being disappointed by that. That's just a very, very crushing blow. And again, I'm not faulting anybody specifically at the AG's office or Duffy Stone's office or anything.
Too.
A lot of them are overworked and overwhelmed. You know how we always see those Alan Wilson gets $300,000 grant for victim services or whatever. Yeah. I would love to see that going towards something like this, to bridging that gap.
There needs to be a concierge, like a criminal case concierge who deals with the phone calls, because I think, and Eric, I'm sure you know this too and what you do, but talking to victims is not easy all the time. And it's because they've been through a trauma that are not used to being listened to. So they're trying to hold your attention by getting all the facts at you in one breath. And so it's hard for you to wrap your head around one breath. And it's not always most times it is not a linear, and we need linear, like in our jobs. Like you need linear, you need 4 sentences, tell me what this case is about. We need 10 sentences, tell us what this story is about, tell us what we can do. We're their last hope in a lot of cases. And so I get it, but it's the
every criminal case is clean, Liz and Mandy.
No,
most of them aren't.
They're not that easy. They have relationships that are built in, or there's things that have happened that cause hatred or whatever. They're just not clean.
Right.
No, but it's solvable. It's solvable.
But our prosecutors go after clean cases, which are mostly boring and have nothing to do with public safety, like petty shoplifting and stuff like that. That, like, I see press releases sometimes and I'm like, 10 years for that? You did what? And then meanwhile you dropped 10 rape cases and sexual assault and child sexual assault cases. What? I also understand how the game works. I understand that they are about numbers in a lot of prosecuting offices, and they just want to get those ratios up so they look like they're winning cases. But it's like, but when you're winning all these bad check cases and dropping all the murder cases, then it becomes what the low country is now, which is just...
They should get to count like murder cases as 10 cases, like for every week of trial or every day of trial gets another day, you know, another point.
And they get like double points for rape cases or something, like just to give some sort of incentive, because there's literally zero incentive for a lot of prosecutors to try rape cases unless they are the rare prosecutor who's like Mandy Powers-Norrell is extremely determined to help victims and things like that. But just a lot of prosecutors, they don't want that L in their record. 2 of my best friends are former prosecutors. They have stories on stories about how, I mean,
in Duffy Stone's office.
And victims have been very, very difficult to them too. Like it can be it's a tough job. It's a very, very tough job. But there has to be more incentives to actually try cases that matter to society instead of just run-of-the-mill shoplifting.
We have a woman, Bishop Vieira, who is a woman. She's married, and her mother was killed 9 years ago when she was 14 or around that age, an early teenager. For her to still live without an answer for her mother's death, and to live in fear of this just ending horribly because the date keeps getting pushed back, right?
Yeah.
To then have this piece of evidence come up, whether or not it helps. Like, I mean, it is what it is. You know, if they can do it, they can do it. They can't, they can't. But to just not show the common courtesy to people who are trying to be helpful to you bugs the heck out. Like, I really get upset about it, because if I could reorganize prosecutors' offices, I would have a whole different approach, and we would have a whole lot of experts lined up to talk about complex trauma, especially when it comes to cases that involve coercive control, domestic abuse, or sexual violence, because the jury needs to understand why people make decisions that they do in the wake of or during a criminal event. They need to understand that, you know, what might not look normal to them because they wouldn't do it. Well, they've never been raped before, so they don't actually know. Like, there are ways to tell the story of what happened to a person in a way that you're actually connecting with the jury, instead of like being so cynical about cases. And I totally understand why they are cynical, but if you're not questioning people, if a victim's family comes to you and says, hey, look, like, ask these 4 people, they might know. Take that information to heart and don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss that there's a phone, you know. I know competence matters, but...
And everybody makes mistakes, and everybody overschedules, and everybody's busy, but, like, just take the courtesy to reach back out and just, like, ignore that mistake. Just, everybody makes mistakes.